Hello and welcome to Shelve, Store, or Sell, presented by Crushing Comics. I'm your host, Crisis with K. I'm here in Wellington, New Zealand, and I have more than 140 short boxes of comics that I don't have on display on the shelves in my home because I've moved them a few times. First from Philadelphia to New Zealand in 2017, and then down the road in New Zealand in 2019. And I think it's time to appreciate them again and to share them with you. I have a packed box today. It is not one of these ones where I've got like stuffing and filler. It is front to back packed, and it is Marvel Shelved, N-A through N-E-W, and it's box 1062. Now, when I see a box that says shelved, I know that means that they were on my original shelves like these back in Philadelphia. I had a 4x4, so they did not go up that high or go that long, and that pretty much held the entirety of my collected editions really up until maybe like the last year. And then I started to have to box things because I was starting to have more and more stuff and I wanted to buy another shelf, but then we wound up moving and it didn't come through. So these are things that I packaged right off the shelf. And I know that I never shelved them in my last home in New Zealand because I know that I only had indie books and oversized books on the shelf. So I don't know what I'm going to find here or if I've read it before, or if I love it. Here's what I do know. I do know that it's going to have, I think, some Namor, and I don't know what new is going to be. I mean, it could be new Avengers. It could be new X-Men. I don't know. What else is new? New Defenders we have already discovered is with Defenders. So enough preamble. Let's look. So, oh wow, it's all different things. So here in this first bundle, we have, first there's this Namor, the First Mutant series. This was part of the post-Second Coming X-Men relaunch. He got his own book. This is actually the first volume with these really cool covers by Jay Lee. And the interiors at first were all by Ariel Olivetti, who you could do worse than having somebody do interiors for a Jay Lee cover. And this is actually, I believe, an Olivetti cover, but there's some other people illustrating in these as well. These were fun. It was the only time that Namor's really had his own series in this whole, hey, he's a mutant status. I mean, I guess we've been calling him a mutant for a while, even maybe back in the 90s, but he's never really been part of the X-Men except for in that period. So it was kind of Namor as an X-book, which they did not hint at all in the, well, I mean, they hinted by saying the First Mutant, but they didn't put like an X motif as they would today. And it was fun, honestly, because you can't really do him as like a Avengers book. You kind of can do him as an Invaders book, but I think that it just gave him some context and I really enjoyed reading it. At the time, it wasn't my favorite, but it was fun. It also had a really fun Doctor Doom arc. It gave him some supporting characters from the X-Men. It was enjoyable. If memory serves, and I'd have to refer you to my Namor guide to be sure, but I think after that, because it only runs for 11 issues, I think he's in the Deep after that, which is one of the Fear Itself series, I want to say. And then after the Deep, he's in the Defenders run by Matt Fraction, I'm pretty sure, because this first one is Curse of the Mutants, which was the banner across that was also across the X-Men 2010 book. So right, this came out in 2010, it ran to 2011, it ended, then he was in the Deep during Fear Itself, then he was in Fraction's Defenders. But I have one other Namor book here, which is the Submariner Revolution, which I think it's right after Civil War. And there were Atlanteans involved in Civil War, and Wolverine's angry about it. So this really should have been first in that bag. But I probably just took them like right off the shelf. So this was, they were like this, and then I put it in the bag, and so it wound up last in the bag. I have read this, actually, because I did a big read-through of all the Civil War trades at some point when I first got them. I would consider shelving them if I had a little bit more room. I think I would do an all Namor shelf, but I don't right now. I'm really only dealing with, a limited number. And to me, I don't know if I'm going to put any of that 2010 X-Men stuff on the shelf. Have I already? I guess I let Daken out and some Astonishing X-Men, but I don't see me going back for the Namor anytime soon. Now, here's something I would consider allowing on the shelf, which is Mystique. She had her own 24-issue series. Yes, 24. The first one was written by Brian K. Vaughan of many famous fames, Ex Machina, Saga, Why the Last Man. And the other one was written by Sean McKeever, who's actually really great and I feel like doesn't usually get his due. And it was Mystique, not Wolverine. I think I'm looking at Wolverine down here. It was Mystique kind of as her own secret agent doing missions for Xavier. And these are ultimate collections because it was originally in like single collections, which I had. And of course, then, were made out of date by this. So I wonder if I still have them or if I ever got a chance to sell them. I would consider shelving that because it's like fun and it's the only time Mystique got her own series. And Mystique's a pretty big deal right now in X-Men comic books, so it might be worth referring to. Then the other thing I have in here, which it's definitely not going back into storage in this box, is Wisdom. Why is it in new? Oh, wait. No, I don't know why. I think because it was supposed to go New Excalibur. Maybe I did have New Excalibur in this box and I just hunted it out when I needed to show it for that recent Excalibur video and then didn't realize that I meant to take Wisdom as well. So I think I shelved it with New Excalibur. Back with New Excalibur it will go, but I think all Excalibur should be in Excalibur. I don't think I'm going to look for it under new. This is fun. It was labeled Marvel Max, which makes its collection status weird. Like, even if they do a complete collection or even an omnibus of that 2006-2007 era Chris Claremont Excalibur series, could they put this in? Because this is Max. Now, did it have naked fairies? Well, I do see a fairy, a giant woman buttocks. Yeah, this is maybe too much for Marvel to put in like a general collection, which is a shame because it's really fun stuff. I remember enjoying it. And it's by Paul Cornell, so actually it doesn't really go with that New Excalibur series at all. I'm lying, even though it was released near there. It's much, and it has the interior cover advertises issues of that. It much more goes with Captain Britain and MI-13, I think, I would say, because Paul Cornell wrote that too. So this is not a shelf necessarily, but I do know I have all those Excalibur collections still out, so I'm just going to set it aside. It's temporarily released from storage. The next thing I have here, New Mutants Classic 1 through 7. Now, before there were Epic Collections and before there were New Mutants omnibuses, this was the way to get continual New Mutants, because other than where it started getting picked up by the X-Men books continuously in Fall of the Mutants, it was not continuously collected. There was no way to just have the issues that came before that. So this was a hot buy, and some of them got obscenely expensive for a while. I remember some of them were like $60, $70, $80 because it was the only way to get New Mutants and people were rabid. It collects exactly to the end of Claremont's run, which I want to say is 54 and annual 3. And then Fallen Angels got its own book, which actually, as luck would have it, is the very next book in here, Fallen Angels, in its original Marvel premiere hardcover. I took a little wrinkling to the top. I wonder if I bought this used or if that's my fault. I don't know. I'm pretty gentle with my books. I know it seems like I fling them all around in here, but I'm really, really quite gentle with books. And the amount of bump this has makes me think it didn't originate with me. But, so this was pretty much the way to get the first half of New Mutants at this point. Now, typically, when I have something older like this, like the Power Pack Classics we've seen recently, I will regift those to the kid because she loves all this stuff. New Mutants has some material that I skipped with the kid. It has the whole Lila Cheney Cannonball relationship, which has some like risque elements and some S&M stuff that I just think she needs guidance. And as a 7-year-old, I just don't think we're quite there yet. I mean, I was a 9-year-old reading it, I'm sure, at some point in the 80s, and I didn't have any guidance, but you know, you try to parent better than you were parented. And then it also has a lot of like drug stuff in that Cloak and Dagger arc that I think I explained as we went, because I do remember reading it. And then it has the Legion stuff, which is really, really violent, and it has a lot of things about terrorism in it as well. So we kind of glossed over some of that in our household read. Now, granted, that was well over a year ago, so she was like 5 or 6 at the time. But I don't know if I'm ready to just unleash her to have those in her room and just read them whenever she wants, because that's a lot of challenging topics all concentrated in just a few issues. But my whole point in that is I don't know if there's any point to selling them, because it's kind of like, who's going to buy them now that there's Epic Collections and that there's omnibuses? Maybe I'll give them to the library, like spread the Marvel love. So then it seems like I just keep going on New Mutants here. See, I thought it was going to be New Avengers. So now we have the beginning of the New Mutants run that runs just alongside the Utopia era of X-Men, which I highly, highly recommend. The first chunk of it is by Zeb Wells. And I think he got a complete collection recently to make these a little bit easier to read. So it starts with the Return of Legion. And I remember getting these like as they came out. Then we have Necrotia, although it has some issues that are not collected along with Necrotia. And then this one, which is amazing, Fall of the New Mutants, which I feel like is about to be kind of relevant again. It has a lot of links to the original Inferno. And we're about to get an event called Inferno. Spoilers. No, it's not spoilers to know that we're about to have a comic book published. Publishing a comic book is not spoilers. So then I have the thing that came right before that, which is X Infernus, which is was Magic returning. I imagine if this ever gets recollected, it would be collected along with the X-Men Academy stuff. And then I also have the one lonely trade that they did of New Mutants, by, is this Diphilipus? Yeah, by Diphilipus and Weir, but it only collects through 1 through 6, and this series, I believe, went to 13. I'm looking over here because I know that they eventually released a trade paperback that had the whole series, and I bought it because it's one less thing to bind, but it must be in one of these legendary boxes of things that I found right before we moved. So that belongs here. And then I also, this is ridiculous, I have New Mutants Forever. These Forever books was Marvel having a creator come back and specifically extend an existing story. So it has New Mutants 53 and 54, which are duplicated in those classics. And then who wrote this Forever story? Was it Claremont himself? Yeah, and so Claremont writes a potential extension of his original run, which didn't actually happen. It actually looks pretty good. Here's some art here. Al Rio. Never heard of him. So I probably got it because at the time, the classic line had not extended that far. And so I bought it so I could have 53 and 54. And then once the classic line extended that far, I was like, why did I even bother? But look, there's yet more in this box. Oh my goodness. Okay, so now we have the back half of New Mutants. This is when it's being written by Abnett and Lanning. I usually really, really love Abnett and Lanning, but I do not like this run very much. But also, hidden in here is this one new, I'm running out of room, this one New Warriors classic, which has New Warriors 7 to 10. I know why it's in here, because it has New Mutants Annual 7, Uncanny X-Men Annual 15, and X-Factor Annual 6. This, at the time, was the only way to get the complete Kings of Pain crossover. Now, that is, I don't know, is it complete? I think it's in the X-Force, it's in the X-Force Omnibus, because New Mutants Annual 7 was really the goodbye shot from New Mutants, and it did have Cable in it, if I'm not mistaken, so they probably collected it alongside of that. So that's why I bought this originally. Then I think later I actually got New Mutants or New Warriors Classics, because they released a collection that was a pseudo epic that came right after the classics, and I realized I only had this one, so I wanted to get them lined up. So this is a temporary shelve, much like that Wisdom series, because it's got to be reunited with its brethren. Although it is new, right? And we're at X, Y, Z. New Warriors should be before this. I must have a box somewhere that's only New Warriors, and that's, oh, it wasn't shelved. Okay, watch me. It's like the light bulb, bing, going on above my head live. This was shelved. So it was the things that I had on display. I had that book on display because I had all of my New Mutants on display because they were X-Men and I referenced them a lot. Somewhere downstairs, there's a non-shelved box that's probably labeled new that has New Warriors in it because I have all the singles of New Warriors that come after the classics, and that's where that should wind up. There's one more in this box, and this is the complete beginning to end run of new X-Men Academy. So I'll take these out and breeze through them. So a lot of people kind of just forgot about this series for a long, long time. And I feel like recently it has its fans, and also because some of the characters are back from the dead now in the current run of X-Men. So it started out here, and this was running more or less around, it started after that last New Mutants series by D. Philippus and Weir. They actually do write this first collection, and it was running pretty much alongside the end of, that was running alongside the end of Marson New X-Men. And then this took the New X-Men title. When Marson New X-Men ended, those characters got merged back into the main X-Titles, and also Astonishing launched. So this was pretty much besides the launch of Astonishing. So then we have the second volume here, Haunted. And then alongside these early volumes, they did a mini-series, Hellions, which Hellions actually had a lot of the good characters in it, now that you think back on it, right? It had Hellion, it had Mercury, it had Rockslide, it had Dust. I don't know who that other person is, though. Who's this other guy? I don't know. So it had 4 of the characters I recognize. The other guy is Brian Cruz, Tag. I have no recollection. Then also Kevin Ford Wither, who became Elixir's primary nemesis. I do remember him. And so then we have Exposed, Volume 3, which goes 12 to 15. Then they got briefly sucked into House of M, so that has 16 to 19. Were they all really House of M issues? Yes, I think they were. No, wait. There were New X-Men. Yeah, they were all House of M issues. Then they come out, and a bold new direction starts with Kyle and Yost, who took over from D. Philippus and Weir there. And Kyle and Yost write starting from this Childhood End #1. This is when the bus, everybody's heard about the school bus. There's a school bus. I won't spoil it for you. And so then that run continues through Childhood End again. And yet more Childhood End. And even additional Childhood End. And then finally, more Childhood's End, and then you would want to read the Ex Infernus book we saw earlier, and then you would read Messiah Complex. I'm kind of tempted to shelf those because it's been a really long time since I read them, and recently Faria read them, not for any of our shows, just to read them because she was tired of always asking us who the characters were, I think. And she was like, this has a lot of enjoyable stuff, and it made me think back to, I read them in such a rush. They were kind of early on in me getting back into X-Men, and I got them all. And they were pretty cheap, except for one or two Childhood End ones I think got expensive for a while. But they've all been reissued in complete collections pretty recently, so now you could just have a nice, tidy little shelf. But I like having the originals. I think that's fun, even if the complete collections of, better, title pages or some bonus content. I just like having the trades as they originally came out. I think that's cool. In a world where I had limitless shelf space, I would probably shelf that for sure, over even shelving the Namor and stuff, because it's one big complete thing of those characters. Those characters are never really all together at the same place in the same time ever again. They kind of get scattered to the wind. But I'm just like looking around, and there are not that many shelves, and I'm not planning on reading it that soon. So I think it's going to go back into storage for now. And then later, maybe when I have another one, because I have this one and that one, maybe when there's a third one, it would be high on the list to come back. So did we sell anything? Well, I guess we want to sell the New Mutants classics if anybody would have them, but we're just holding on that. And we didn't really shelve anything. We just rescued Wisdom and New Warriors because they're in the wrong place. So that was kind of a bust, I guess. But it's fun because all of these books come not only with the stories of what's going on in the books, but they come with the stories of like how I got the books and why the books are where they are, which is part of the fun of this for me. Like I knew everything in this box. I knew that I had, including New Warriors 2. But I didn't know that they were on my shelf. I didn't know how I packed them. I didn't have the memory of how I got them and when I originally read them. Especially, I want to go back to this, where is it? That New Mutants with the Inferno stuff. The Fall and Rise of the New Mutants. I have such a specific memory of reading this on my couch late at night. It makes me wonder if maybe it came out. No, it didn't come out after my daughter was born. This first printing was in 2011, but I am almost positive that I picked this up originally as a trade paperback, which would have come out a little bit later, still probably before she was born. But maybe after I started my startup job, I just have this vivid memory of it being in that period of my life and just being on the couch and being really late and me not being able to go to sleep and being like, well, I guess I'm going to read this New Mutants book. And I hadn't read the previous two, I don't think. I just got this one fresh maybe and just was reading it, and I was like, because I was picking up everything from Second Coming, and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And I didn't have the affinity for the New Mutants characters then that I do now, because I've read so much more New Mutants, but I was like, wow, I actually maybe loved this New Mutants crew. I was more of an X-Force person because that's when I originally read, and so then I decided, okay, we're going to get this run in hardcover, and then I upgraded them all to hardcovers. So it's fun. Comic books and books in general, right, are a machine for time travel. You read them and you go back in your head to when you read them and how you read them and what you thought about when you read them and what you were going through in your life when you read them. And that's amazing. And that's a huge part of why I do this. So that's enough rambling. This has been Shelved, Store, or Sell, presented by Crushing Comics. Thanks so much for joining me for this trip down memory lane in my time travel machine, also known as a short box. I really appreciate it. Comment below. I mean, this is a lot of X-Men material. I didn't even get into that classic New Mutant stuff because I talked about it so much recently when I posted the video for the Omnibus. But tell me if you have any feelings or readings on some of this other material, including that 2010 era Namor series, and including the full 2000, I guess that's 8 or 9 New Mutant series, as well as that 2004 X-Men Academy stuff. And until I get to see you again, I very much hope that